I am really sorry. I'm just getting this to you now. I had a really bad week last week with pretty severe migraine headaches, and anytime that I would look at a screen, I would get really sick again. Excuse me. So I'm really sorry that I'm just getting these to you now. I'm going to flip through again. I went through them a couple times already, but just kind of refresh my memory again. Um, yeah, you have some really good compositions, and I can yeah, see what you have going on. I like what you're doing. Using breaking up, using the kind of rule of thirds, not dead center of the frame. That's great. I like that you have the kind of the red shirt with against the flowers. All the colors are good. I can see you're utilizing your background and thinking about all of these different layers within the photograph. Visually, the visual layers within the photograph, and that's great. Same thing with here too. I really like this shot quite a bit. With the person walking away with these trees in the background and this, it's really a beautifully done photograph. Um, Technically, pretty much these are all pretty solid. This one, it starts to push it just a little bit where it gets a little bit too hot over here. It's a little overexposed, and then the sky gets a little overexposed. What I usually do, it looks like you're shooting in camera raw and have a decent camera, and maybe you're not, and I could be wrong, but it looks like you have a decent camera, is I usually, if it's a really bright scene or have a bright area like this, is I photograph just a little bit underexposed so that this highlight doesn't get too blown out, and I know that the shadows can be opened up in Lightroom or Photoshop. So keep that in mind if you're photographing like a really bright day. And also keep in mind, like, you get this lens flare here as you're just the sun's like way over here somewhere, so you're getting kind of a lens flare on your lens. It's not the biggest deal, and it's not in your subject, so it's not something to really be super worried about in the situation, but just be aware of down the line. But your composition is awesome. Yeah, you have good compositions, really dynamic compositions for sure. Um, yeah, maybe she could go just a little bit to the right here, just to be perfectly in between this line, like line her up just perfectly with that in between these two windows, just to push that idea of symmetry even further. Yeah, he looks good too. Do look at this background though. You have the kind of door jam or whatever coming out of his head. That stuff becomes distracting. I like what you did though. Put him in between these two planters. The lighting is really nice and soft. It's like great. It's a good portrait. Other than the thing popping in his background, if he needed some sort of a headshot for something or some sort of a photograph or something like that. This too, as the sun gets rough, you can kind of get away with it, but it gets rough. It gets kind of distracting. Gets some weird artifacts, and it bleeds down and kind of gets in the way of your subject a little bit too much in this case. I feel like this is good though too. Yeah, yeah, you got good light. You got a good composition. Again, the background, I would put them maybe a little bit over this way, a little bit more, just so you don't have the line coming out. It works still, but keep those in mind in that photograph or in those situations. This is nice. You have really good sense of space when you're putting someone into like the environment and utilizing your background and kind of the vantage point to lead us back. Um, yeah, it's good. This one it's a little bit underexposed in here. It could be brightened up in Lightroom or Photoshop if you have the ability and the capabilities of getting one of those programs. Same thing with this one too. It becomes a little bit competitive with the background. Um, and it's okay. It works, but it's okay. So overall, you have some really good compositions. Yeah, like this one is great, and it's beautiful. Some really beautiful lit shots. Yeah, you're really on the right track. Just conceptually, like, where could you go that's beyond the ordinary pretty posed photograph? What's interesting? What's an extra layer? Whether it's someone who they just woke up in the morning, or uh, you can look into a photographer called Diane Arbus, or Diane Arbus, how she pronounced her name. She photographed kind of what she would refer to as freaks or people that are abnormal. I'm not saying that you should go find abnormal people, but there's a certain tension in her photographs that make them really interesting. Where these are a lot of them are very interesting and they're very pretty, but they're going to kind of only go so far. So what we really want in the fine art world is kind of go that extra layer deeper and like how could you scrape deeper? And for your next project, just kind of keep that question in mind. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me.